Technology Development and the University of Colorado, Texas, and he was the principal investigator and co-investigator in 7 multinational trials. He has received Best Doctor Award by the government of Tamil Nadu in the year 2011. And we are also extremely privileged to have you on board, sir, and over to Dr. T.R. Mundani.
Thank Sun Group and Dr. Jaishankar for bringing the wonderful event to happen. My pleasure to participate here. At the outset, I want to thank all my colleagues who are with me today to participate in the ECG program. So, without wasting time, we'll move to ECG. This session is going to be on some interesting ECG with questions so that you have a chance to poll and some fine discussion by both of us. Next slide. Yeah. So, this is the first ECG we are going to discuss today. A 22-year-old male smoker comes with atypical chest pain. So, a young guy, smoker, atypical chest pain. And this is the ECG recorder at the ER. It's a 12-lead ECG. You can see if simply it read 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVL, E1 to E. So, we will go back to the next slide, see the question, and come back to the ECG before going for poll. Go to the next ECG. Maybe next slide. Please go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is ECG. Are you going to take him for an immediate cath lab or angiogram and adopt PTCA, or treat it like NSTEMI conservative treatment, or look at rural metabolic causes, keep investigating, or do one more investigation like right cell lead and order echocardiogram. These are the 4 options. So go back to the ECG, have a look, then we can plan for the poll. Can you go back to the next ECG? Previous slide, sorry. Go to the previous slide.
Yes, sir. I am on the previous slide.
I want the audience to have a look at the slide before going for poll, please. Yeah, this is the ECG. So decide whether to treat as a STEMI, NSTEMI, or look at metabolic causes, or do some more investigation, do some more echo and this kind.
Shall we go to poll?
Yeah, please go to the poll.
Yes.
The poll starts.
Yes. Audience are requested to select the options on the screen so that they can poll themselves. I think it's a new thing for many, so probably people are taking time. Sir, let's go to the probably the result is 1 option was first and 3 options have 4 options have come for 4th diagnosis, sir.
The majority, so the number of votes polled was low. The majority of polled rightly only, or chosen right side is the echo. Let us go to the next right.
So shall I go next slide? Okay,
yeah.
Fine, sorry.
So absolutely right. As you said, we have done the right side ECG. And what you are seeing in the right side ECG, where we are seeing from V1 to V6, when it was keeping the lead on the right side of the chest, it is moving. The R wave is blowing. You see LV forces coming in the V6 actually in the right side. So, as you suspected, the right side shows the major LV or cardiac mass. Go to the first next.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now it's a combination of both. What we saw initially and here. What is the point of importance I would like to stress is if you see the lead one, you see inverted T wave, negative QRS, inverted T wave. The reverse you are seeing upright T wave in AVR. These 2 things always should make you to suspect that there could be a dextrocardia or a technical dextrocardia. A limb lead wrongly placed also can bring the same thing. Whereas if we come to the right side, if the precardial lead shows a normal progression R phase, we know very well the leads are wrongly placed and probably the heart of the left side only. Here in this case, not only the limb lead shows even the dextrocardia, in the precardium, even to V6, you see the RV becomes diminished. It looks as if we are going away from the heart. Whereas coming to the right side, the RV is growing, saying the LV is the right side. So this combination of both precardial change and immediate change makes you to think of dextrocardia, which you can confirm readily with the Excel. Go to the next slide. So what you see, inversion of P waves in lead 1 and AVL, dominant S waves in lead 1 and V1 to V6 in the regular left side lead, reverse RV progression. So far we see the right side. Low voltage QRS V4 to V6, we saw that. Extreme QRS axis deviation and flattened T wave in lateral leads and inverted T wave lead 1 AVL. We saw all these things in our case, suggestive of what you see in the X-ray dextrocardia, and the alerting sign to all my friends is the reversal in lead 1. The negative QRS, negative T wave. Then go to the precardium, normal precardial RV progression, think of lead domination. Lack of precardial RV progression, think of mirror image dextrocardia. Thank you for your listening. I request my colleague to Jay Shankar to pass his comments and take over the proceedings from this point. Jay, yours.
Sir, your slides are on. Are they visible?
Yeah. Am I
Yeah.
audible, Sachin? Yeah.
Perfectly audible, sir. Yes, sir.
Please
This
go
is
to
first slide.
one. It was a very nice case, sir. I also learned a few points. Thank you for the insight, sir. So my case is going to be a real time again, as sir has shown. 54-year-old male comes to the emergency department, has chest pain, and as the ECG is done, the left side ECG, unfortunately, I have lost it. You see the right sided chambers are marked out there, and we see RV1, 2, 3, 4 up to RV6. And suddenly to the right side of the panel, you see a very rapid heart rate. So patient has presented with 2-hour history of chest pain, and you're doing the ECG, and this is what, as you record, so it's very extremely rare to record this. And what may be the diagnosis? We can go for the poll, Sachin. So is it an anterior MI with polymorphic VT, inferior MI with polymorphic VT? Are there tremor artifacts or they are non-specific changes?
To just select the options, we are seeing the results live.
TRM, sir, are you able to see the response?
Thank you. Very interesting.
Yes, sir. We are able to see.
Dr. Muralidharan, sir, is seeing, no?
Yeah,
Yes.
I could see. I have also polled.
Okay, that's good.
Very good.
So we see majority of participants polling, more than half of them anterior MI, polymorphic VT. You said inferior MI, some said tremor artifacts. Good. None of us have voted as non-specific changes. Please go to the next slide, Sachin.
Yes, sir. I'm just coming to the slides. Just a minute.
Right. Sure.
So this is the answer,
Go back
sir.
to the slide and click. Yeah. So anterior MI, polymorphic VT. Remember, lead V1 is though it's a right-sided lead. It's more towards the anterior wall and septum. But V4R is not showing any ST elevation. So it's an anterior MI, and that kind of a torsades, as you see towards the right panel, it's always worrisome because it is ischemia which is causing this extremely rapid. Please click once, Sachin, to the next slide. So how do we treat these patients? Please go forward to the next. So prompt defibrillation, because remember it's a polymorphic VT which is about to degenerate to a VF, and patient will not give us time. If you can reperfuse by way of PCI, that's the best option. Failing which, prompt lysis is what we should be looking forward. Let's go to the next. Yeah. So the second question is again looks carefully. 62-year-old male presents with syncope. Quite an old ECG, I would say, about 6-7 years ago. Please see carefully because it's a polling question. And what do you diagnose from there? There are 4 options there again. Please go to the polling, Sachinji.
Is that right? Yes.
Yeah. So all of us perhaps got it right. Few of us feel that there is no complete hard block. We'll go back to the slide, please.
Slide, shall I go to, or shall we wait?
Same to the same slide, please.
I got into slide,
Yeah.
sir. Yeah.
So look carefully. Lead 2, 3, and AVF are showing ST elevation. Yeah, ST elevation in 2, 3 AVF. The P wave and QRS are not related. Down there, the rhythm strip. Patient is in complete heart block and also has a RBBV escape. Please click once. So the answer number 2. Please click once on the screen.
Yes, I did so.
Inferior wall MI with complete heart block. Next slide, please.
It's case 3, sir.
Yeah. So we'll move on after 2 of these fairly straightforward MIs to a 55-year-old man, diabetic, who presents with cardiogenic shock. So slightly different here. Patient has come with a bizarre looking rhythm. He is in shock. We cannot take any history. And we just, as part of triage, quickly do an ECG. And what do we find? It's a polling question again. 4 options. Anterior wall MI, right bundle branch block, sinus tachycardia. Inferior wall MI, right bundle branch block, sinus tachycardia. Just a right bundle branch block with sinus tachycardia. Or is it some form of an SVT with aberrancy? So look carefully and please go to the poll, Sachinji.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I think we're gone to Dr. Tiaram's.
Yes, we are going.
So,
yeah. Yes, this is
right.
what the poll is.
Right, that's right.
All the answers for first option, sir.
All right, fantastic. So starting from the simple ECG, I don't think I have much to add. Please go forward. Sir, would you like to add anything in the ECG? Dr. Tiaram, sir?
No, very important ECG. Obviously, presence of this anti-LMA with right bundle branch block, we all know, is a sinister situation. Often it is due to osteal LAD, so an early intervention needed. So this is one of the danger signs when we treat with STEMI, a group where we need to think of an early intervention. That's important. So that's very interesting ECG.
That's right, sir. Sachin, please click once. There will be some arrows, I believe, on this ECG.
Yes, sir. I've got it.
The correct answer is highlighted. And the lead AVR showing ST elevation is very, very essential, as Dr. Tiaram sir just said now. There is ST elevation V1 to V3 and some ST elevation V4 as well. Patient is expected to be in failure and will have a very osteoproximal LAD or even a left main disease. This patient, if I remember correct, had a left main disease and went on to have a prompt PCI. Next, please. So prompt reperfusion, again, PCI is clearly superior in cardiogenic shock and we need to go for PCI. So who's doing the next? Is it me or sir is doing? Okay, it's me again. All right.
Yes, sir.
So again, something to do with ischemia. We get these patients with non-specific pain like left arm pain. A 43-year-old business executive comes to the marketing executive comes to the ER with some vague left arm pain of 8 hours duration. And as part of triage, all the time, we quickly do an ECG, and that's what it shows. Let's go to the poll, please. We should not take much time here.
Poll is in front of you, sir.
I think it's fairly straightforward. All of us have ticked on to the lateral MI because clearly the lateral chest leads are showing the ST elevation. Please go back to the slide.
Yes.
And there we will see the points to look forward, look carefully. Is going to be, please go back. Yeah, 1 and AVL showing ST elevation and V5, V6 also showing ST elevation. And more importantly, reciprocal changes are very important here. So the moment you start seeing reciprocal changes, lead 3 and AVF, you rule out early repolarization syndrome. So many times patients, young guys with sort of bradycardia, relative bradycardia, and having a J point elevation, this is what we're going to see all the time. But the moment you see reciprocal ECG depression, ST depression in the reciprocal leads, then it has to be ischemia and nothing else. You can't let the patient go home. Next, please. So very important thing, a frowny and a smiley ST, as it is called, and a cove-shaped ST, as shown on the top panel, usually indicates acute injury, and a concave shape, as shown in the lower panel, is usually benign, especially if the patient is asymptomatic. However, if the patient is symptomatic, all the time, as I said earlier, we need to look for reciprocal ECG changes. Yeah, go forward, please.
So, shall we move to the TRM, sir, or you are going to continue?
Yes, no, Dr. Muralidharan, fine.
Okay, I'm just going there now.
Sure.
So, Muralidharan, sir, over to you.
Next ECG, start back again. This is for every physician in their day-to-day practice. 57-year-old male, diabetic, who comes with an significant epigastric discomfort. The significant epigastric discomfort, and this is the ECG. The ECG is all the old ECG. You can see lead 1, 2, 3, and AVR, AVL, AVF, and V1 to V6. You can notice the ECG, the QRS, the ST2. So the question is a diabetic with epigastric discomfort? We don't know what it could be. What are we going to do next? Next slide, please. Yeah. So if we treat it as acute coronary syndrome, can we consider this as a possibility of pericarditis, or look at the rule of the non-cardiac causes, or none of the above? Just ignore the ECG and treat them as we like. So these are the 4 things: acute coronary syndrome, pericarditis, or non-cardiac causes.
Sundal, I'm speaking in a webinar. I'll call you back.
Polling is perfect, right?
Yeah, polling is perfect. Polling is perfect. Wonderful, wonderful responses. Points to discuss. Are the polling finished? Yeah.
Shall I move to slide?
Yeah, move the slide. So the majority was thinking of acute coronary syndrome. Many of the time you will be right. Many of the time you will be right thinking acute coronary syndrome. But you have to remember other causes which can produce ECG changes. Go to the ECG one and the previous slide.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir. Got it.
So in the ECG, many of you thought because of the T-wave inversion, isoelectric ST segment suggests probably maybe acute coronary syndrome. But always keep in mind the other non-cardiac causes. Go forward. Next slide. Next slide.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in the investigation, you can see the electrolytes are normal. The amylase was grossly elevated, 1550. So it's a case of pancreatitis. An acute pancreatitis manifesting as a ECG change suggests your acute coronary syndrome. In him, I would like to give a practical problem. If the thrombolyze, we are going to make it an hemorrhagic pancreatitis usually, and the risk of, fatal outcome are going to be very high. Remember that. So it was a case of pancreatitis. Next slide. So he was promptly admitted, treated for the same thing. He was in the intensive care unit, conservative management for pancreatitis. Fine. After 24 hours, with the same patient, after 24 hours, he was called for a cardiac consult where he was having bradycardia and hypotension. Bradycardia and hypotension. This is the ECG. You can see, unfortunately, I could not see V5, V6 here, sorry. But lead 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, V1 to V6. You can see the changes and the extreme bradycardia. What would you like to do? So initially we thought acute coronary syndrome, but realized it's a pancreatitis. Now we are seeing bradycardia, hypertension. Go to the next slide. What to do? So it should be now thrombolyze, maybe association, or should I put a temporary pacemaker and permanent pacemaker, or think of both thrombolysis and followed by temporary pacemaker, or none of the above. So either thrombolyze, spacing, or both. What do you want? Both started, yeah. Okay. I prefer everyone to poll, and we'll see. Not a problem. We can finish it. So majority thought we should think of a temporary pacemaker. Again, the answer is you may be right sometimes, but in ICU, bradycardia, go to the slide. In ICU with bradycardia, we always think we have to resuscitate the patient, get the rhythm back. But remember, there are some metabolic causes which can cause bradycardia, hypotension. There, a pacemaker will be of not great value. Sometimes it can cause harm. I want to see the ECG. Screen loading. Yeah, go to the next ECG. Next slide. Yeah. So what you are seeing is the diminutive P wave, the R wave, and at the end one slur. End of the R wave there is one slur. It's an important finding not to be missed. Go to the next slide.
Just a minute, sir.
Yeah, that's an Osborne wave. Originally described by Osborne several years ago, 1953, otherwise called camel hump sign or late delta wave. This type of wave coming in intensive care unit, usually we think of hypothermia. Hypothermia can produce Osborne wave, bradycardia, hypotension. Sometimes can give a fatal outcome. Point of interest is this is seen in other type of problems, extreme renal failure, respiratory failure. We have seen similar Osborne waves, but majority we think of hypothermia. Common scenario: person in pancreatitis with a lot of IV fluid being given in resuscitation, known to cause hypothermia in the air-conditioned intensive care setting. Next slide. He was promptly corrected for hypothermia. You can see the ECG normalized after 24 hours. Correcting hypothermia, you see both the disappearance of the ischemic change and also the disappearance of the bradycardia, Osborne wave, everything. So the point I would like to drive here is ECG many times helps not only for cardiac problem but major non-cardiac problem in intensive care setting. Thank you. I think next slide is Jace, no? The next case, Jayshankar, would you like to add any points?
Sure. No, sir, fantastic, sir. It's very good. It's just that you brought home the correct point. If we do not diagnose properly, thrombolyze these patients can make the pancreatitis hemorrhagic transformation and can be fatal to the patient. So, non-cardiac causes also needs to be kept in mind all the time. So, clinical evaluation, clinical judgment of the physician is more important than ECG findings. Needs to be correlated all the time. Very nice case, sir. Which slide
Is
you are
that
showing?
visible? Is that visible?
Not yet. Not yet.
Just a minute. Is that visible now?
Not yet. It's still showing Sachin's screen is being loaded. That's what is coming.
Sir, is it visible
Yeah,
now?
now, yes.
Yes. So this is
So
case
we
5,
go
sir.
to, yeah. So a diabetic, known case of dilated cardiomyopathy, severe left ventricular systolic dysfunction. These patients have a lot of cardiac symptoms. He presents with palpitations and breathlessness. So I would like you to see the ECG carefully. It's a broad complex. See all the 12 leads carefully, and there's a rhythm strip, lead 2 and V1 down, lead 2, V1 and V5 down there. What is the diagnosis? Is it a VT? Is it an acute MI, anterior wall? Is it a left ventral branch block with sinus tachycardia or only sinus tachycardia? Let's have the poll, please, quickly.
Yes. Poll is on.
So I think we are through. Yeah.
So back to the ECG,
The usual,
right?
yeah, the usual teaching is whenever there's a broad complex tachycardia, always consider VT. One will not be penalized. 70% of the times will be all right. But in this case, look carefully. Lead 1 through AVF and then V1 to V6. You will see that patient has a left bundle branch block, and very clearly in lead V1, there's a P wave preceding the QRS. So the P and R are related. So we have left bundle branch block morphology, the classical left bundle branch block with secondary STT changes in V5, V6. Please click once, Sachin, on the screen, so you will get the
Yes.
correct answer. So that's the right answer. Left bundle branch block with the sinus tachycardia. There is no VA dissociation. There is no shift in axis. The axis remains normal. And you see the onset of R wave to the nadir of S wave in lead V1, V2. It is pretty sharp. It is not shallow. So that peak to the R wave to nadir of S wave less than 70 millisecond also goes against VT. We need to be very cautious, because if you go and shock this patient, the sinus tachycardia is not going to reverse. The patient is in failure. We need to treat the failure. Next, please. 65-year-old obese female who is a known hypertensive and diabetic complains of recent onset tiredness. So look at the ECG carefully. We have only a rhythm strip here. What may be the diagnosis? So when we are given too many P waves and less QRS, we have to always look for the relationship of P and R. That's it.
Shall we go for a poll?
We'll click. We'll wait for. We'll go to the poll now. Please go to the poll.
Yes, sir. We are on the poll. Yes, people are responding.
Nobody seems to be. Okay. Now the participation is there.
Yes, sir.
So good that most of us do not think it is sinus arrhythmia. All of us agree it's not a complete heart block, but few of us feel it is type 2 AV block. Some feel. Go back to the slide if the poll is over, and click once on the slide. So there'll be a clue out there. So when 2 or more P waves are non-conducted, it's called high-grade AV block. And the conducted P wave will have a normal PR interval. So 2 or more consecutive non-conducted P waves, as shown in the middle of the panel, goes in favor of a high-grade AV block. It is a forerunner to a complete heart block. So it has to be viewed with suspicion. The patient can have syncope. I think there's some network issues.
Yeah, just a minute, sir. Just a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, so please click once, rather 2 times on the slide, so you will get the correct answer now. Yeah. So answer number 2, advanced second degree AV block. So calls for early intervention, rule out metabolic causes, as previously Dr. T. Aram sir had said, and then quickly rule out history of beta blocker usage and all that, and then start thinking of patients. Next, please. 80-year-old male, known case of Parkinson's disease, presents with syncope. This one has been taken from, again, from the rhythm strip. I have marked out the P waves there. And what is the diagnosis? There are 2 rhythm strips there, one on top, one on bottom. We'll go to the poll, Sachinji, quickly.
Yes.
Sachin, shall I stop sharing? So
we have some clues there. few of us feel that it could be anti-Parkinsonism drugs causing it. The age is 80 years, so let's bear in mind. Yeah, I think the poll is finished. There is a fair representation for a heart block due to drugs and AV block, third degree, narrow and wide QRS. That's the correct response. Next, please. Let's go back to the slide and click on it. And let's see carefully. No relationship of P wave to the QRS. And the conducted P waves. The P wave, whenever it marches in and out of QRS, we're dealing with a complete heart block. And the panel on top shows a narrow QRS escape. Panel on bottom shows a wide QRS escape from the same patient at different times. So this this is not a drug effect, and this is a degenerative complete heart block. Next, please. Calls for early pacing. So we'll skip this slide. We'll go to the next, please. Am I doing it or sir is doing it? Dr. T.R.M. sir, would you like to do next?
Putting on the whole prepared.
So we go to Dr. T.R.M. next, please.
Shall we move to TRM, sir?
Yeah.
Please. Go full screen.
No,
More case of cyanotic heart disease. In male, more case of cyanotic heart disease. Complete recurrent loss of consciousness. Incomplete cognitive recovery consciousness. 2 weeks of duration. Okay, that is the thing. It's an interesting ECG, rather a teaser I use it. Go to the next slide. So this is the ECG script. I believe it is a limit only. Sorry, I could not label it, but believe me, the 6-lead ECG script. You are seeing. I would like to show the question and we can plan for that. So this is the ECG. Have a look at it. Go to the phone now. So the question is it a VT? Is it a sinus tachycardia with AV block, atrial fibrillation, or atrial flutter? So the ECG 1 and go for both. Yeah. VT, sinus tachycardia, or atrial fibrillation, or atrial flutter. What will be your right? You can go for the poll, right?
Ananta. Yes.
No, wrong question. Wrong.
Fifth.
This is one. Okay, no problem.
This is perfect.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. This is the video of this thing. Yeah. Aruna. Answer was
We can go back to the slide and sir can explain.
you can go back to the slide, please.
Sir, you are not visible. Have you switched off the video, sir?
No. Am I in?
I'm not
This
able
is
to
the
see you.
question. This is the question for this. Sorry, can we conduct the poll again? This is what the question we wanted. Insulin tachycardia, sinus tachycardia. This is the question. Go back. Your four questions will keep on changing.
No,
Go
it's
back
a
to
slide. Slide number 15, right?
Yeah. Or just leave it. This is the poll we wanted. Doesn't matter. I'll explain. Go to the next page, please. The teacher only, whatever the question may be. So this is the ECG. What you are seeing here is occasional QRS complex. Occasional QRS, plenty of P wave. Many of you would have thought a white was victim. But sometimes in congenital heart disease, the P wave will be very large and they can doesn't look like a QRS. But you have to always try to look for QRS carefully, which is in this case a complete heart block, sinus tachycardia with occasional QRS. STCG, next slide.
TRM sir is there. Hello. Subbu, TRM sir is joining back.
Yeah, he will join me.
Okay. Till that time, sir, would you like to take up? Jai sir. Hello, Jai sir.
Audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
Okay. Go to the ECG.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
there
We
was
are,
an interruption in the connectivity.
Sachin, you can share.
yes, I will do that. Just a minute.
Slide number 19.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm coming.
There was some problem in the slide selection, I think. Polling slide doesn't matter. We'll just discuss the case and go to the next one.
Yes, sir. So slide number 19.
Yeah.
Is this seen?
No,
Proper
not
slide?
yet. Not yet. Okay, what we are seeing is only P wave. Actually, this is the case of a complete heart block, a complex cyanotic heart disease with a dextrocardia, so many abnormal DI, LV, double in the left ventricle, double in the right ventricle. Next slide. So the reason why I showed this is sometimes what appears to be a QRS need not be QRS, it can be only P wave. Thanks for listening. Jay, can you take over from here? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You want to add any point, Jay?
Sure. Sir.
Jai sir. TRM sir.
Yeah, I'm done.
Am I audible?
You are
Okay.
audible. I am done.
Yeah.
Okay. So shall I move to the Jai sir slides?
Yeah, please.
Very nicely
Okay.
brought out, sir, that those big complexes need not always be QRS. That's what the students need to bear in mind. And we should look carefully for the whole lead, all the complexes, and have the background clinical information in mind. That's very important. Nicely brought out, sir. So there may be repetition in this next few slides. So go to, yeah, is it mine? Yeah. Please go back one slide. Okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
next one. Sorry, next one. Yeah. So a 45-year-old female presents with recurrent palpitations. So we have two panels of ECGs, one on top, one on bottom. Obviously, the one on top is tachycardia. The one on bottom is during sinus rhythm. We have four options there. Let's quickly poll and see what we have.
Anand, poll. Absolutely. So results in front of you.
Yes. So there is some varied response here. AVRT, AVNRT are good differentials here. We'll go back to the slide, please.
Shall I move the next slide or the same slide? Shall I
So you just click once, please. And when you click once, you blow up once more, please. So
Yes, sir, that has come.
yeah, once more. So with the arrow, I have shown some kind of a hump on end of QRS, which is sharp, which is not there in sinus rhythm in the bottom panel. That's where the P wave is sitting, and a very short R to P tachycardia, less than 70 millisecond, or if a P wave is not seen during tachycardia and a narrow complex tachycardia, most often it is AVNRT. Please click once, so we'll get the diagnosis there. So there are some
one.
clinical clues. AVNRT common in middle-aged women. No P wave during tachycardia, or you are able to make out that sharp marking at the end of QRS, particularly in the anterior chest leads V1 and V2. All the time that short R to P interval, that is less than 70 millisecond, is in favor of a AV nodal reentrant tachycardia. However, if the P wave is falling away from the QRS, something like 70 millisecond or more, then it is more in favor of a reentrant tachycardia in the form of an accessory pathway, that is AVRT. Next, please. Again, a clinical clue, a 20-year-old college girl presents with recurrent palpitations. Same 4 choices, tachycardia on top, no tachycardia down there. That is after some intervention has been done in the form of pharmacological therapy. Let's go to the poll, please. A quick poll. Because these are fairly straightforward. The ECGs will become complex as we go further down the talk.
Five people have responded, sir.
Right. So we have again some varied response. Most of us feel it's a reentrant tachycardia using accessory pathway. Next, please. We'll go back to the slide. Again, I'll request you to click on the slide to, yeah. So this is the blown up zoom part of of both the panels, one on top, one on bottom. The arrow mark shows the P wave, the inverted P wave up there in tachycardia. No, P wave before, upright P wave before the QRS in sinus rhythm. So the diagnosis, please click once more, Sachinji, and
Yes, sir.
we should be able to have the AV reentrant tachycardia. Look at the R to P interval, farther away the P wave from the preceding R wave. So RP interval more than 70 millisecond in a narrow complex tachycardia. All the time it is going to be a AVRT. Next, please. Are we going to ask sir to do next, or am I doing it?
Decide, sir. I'm okay with anything. You
Okay,
can complete.
so we'll just finish. Yeah, just finish one quick one. 30-year-old lady presents with paroxysmal palpitations. We have the ECG with rhythm strip down there, lead 2. What may be the diagnosis? Is it a AVRT, atrial tachycardia, flutter, or AVNRT? Same 4 choices. Let's see the poll, please.
Ananta poll. Ananta poll.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Ananta? I think Anant is out of the range. Sir, just a minute.
Right.
Shall
No
I bring
problem.
back to the ECG?
We
for
can
a
go
while?
back this slide. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, sir, it is there. It is there on the,
we got the
wall.
poll.
Yes.
Yeah, we got the poll. Nearly 2/3 of us feel that it is atrial tachycardia. Few of us feel atrial flutter. Some feel accessory pathway mediated tachycardia. None of us feel it is AVNRT. Next, please. We'll go back to the slide.
So this is what the ECG again we are.
Yeah. Please click once, so you will get the answer there highlighted. And why it is so? There is a isoelectric line between the two inverted P waves. That's a very important thing. A no isoelectric line or a sawtooth pattern will make it more in favor of a flutter. So inverted P wave 2-3 AVF, it's a low atrial focus. Lead 1 and AVL showing positive P wave, indicating that it's a right atrial focus. So right atrial lower down from the atrium is where it is. Most often such an inverted P wave in inferior leads is a coronary sinus os focal tachycardia, and it can be ablated with reasonable ease. So I think we'll hand it over to Dr. T.R. sir for a few cases.
Yes, sir. I'm just moving to his slides. Just a minute.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So slides on. Is it visible?
Yeah, very much clear.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
It's TRM sir has to present.
Yeah, yes, I'm waiting for him to respond. Hello, Dr. TRM, sir.
I think he's not there.
Sir, shall we go to your slides then? One slide.
Yeah,
at least?
sure.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. We'll wait for him to come back.
Yeah. Till the time he comes, you start with your 11th case. Right, sir. Hello, Jai sir. TRM sir. Hello. Yeah, Murli sir is joining. Just a minute.
I think there's a connectivity problem. I apologize to all the colleagues here with me today. So this is the patient. Yeah, 20-year-old girl came with palpitation of 2 days. In fact, I am showing this at the right time when Jay has discussed both atrial tachycardia, the AV-NRT, AV-RT, and the RS relationship. Spend the time on the ECG, narrow QRS, you can see the blips at the end of the V1. So this is the ECG. Young girl coming with palpitation. You can see the the terminal waves, all those things. We'll go to the question now. We'll come back to the ECG also. Go to the next slide. Yeah. Is it a AV-NRT? Is it a AV-RT? Atrial tachycardia or a sinus tachycardia? So we have to think about a narrow QRS tachycardia, all the 4 possibilities, and the location of P waves. Go back to the ECG.
So shall we go for a poll?
No, go for the ECG, please.
Okay, ECG got it, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, see the ECG again. Narrow QRS thing with the terminal P wave like structure. So with this, come to a conclusion. We can go for the poll now. So the question is AV-NRT, AV-RT, atrial tachycardia, or sinus tachycardia? I would love to see more votes. I didn't have no time, sorry. Okay, the majority is thinking AV-RT, and some amount of people thought second one is AV, atrial tachycardia, and AV-NRT. We'll close the poll. We'll go to the ECG.
Visible, sir?
Yeah, visible. The interesting point is you see a narrow QRS, you see the P wave, you see the RP interval narrow. All my friends have recognized it. Thank you for that. But you see the P wave is upright. The P wave is upright in inferior leads. Suppose a retrograde P wave coming from the due to AV-NRT or AV-RT, you see often a negative P wave which is not seen. Rare other possibilities are there. Same thing in V1, we would like it to be positive, but it is negative. So there is suggestion of a retrograde P wave, but in reality, we do not know whether it is really retrograde P wave coming closely. Go to the next ECG. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, see, same patient after some time, you can see the P waves are now separated. Lot of P wave, tiny inverted P wave in every lead. Lot of P wave, and the atrial rate is more than the ventricular rate. So we know very well we are dealing with the probable atrial tachycardia. Next slide. Same ECG in a close-up, you can see the frequently occurring P wave, narrow one, upright in inferior lead, and the AV dissociation. That is, the ventricular rate is higher than the atrial rate. So 2:1 conduction like situation. Next slide. So to differentiate, a quick look at the thing. There are various algorithms, but you see the RP interval like Jay has discussed. For want of time, I'm rushing up. Next slide. So always you will look how regular the QRS tachycardia is, irregular or regular. Here we have a regular and visible P wave. Next slide. So when the visible, we are looking at the ventricular rate greater than the atrial rate or atrial rate greater than ventricular rate. Here atrial rate is greater than ventricular rate. So we are probably dealing with flutter or a atrial tachycardia, very rare AV-NRT. Next slide. The crucial learning point is here, look at the RP interval. That is where sometimes you get misled. The RP interval can be very narrow like our patient. But even then you can think of things other than AV-NRT. Though narrow RP, always we think of AV-NRT, but sometimes you think of other tachycardia also. Next slide. Next slide.
So next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next one. Next one. Yeah. The most important thing is adenosine or cortisol massage, you create a AV block. In our patient, if you see, during the AV thing, the atrial tachycardia is persisting. Atrial AV-NRT or AV-RT, they will terminate. We thought AV-NRT, AV-RT in this case, they will terminate, whereas an atrial tachycardia will persist and only the ventricular response will come down as we saw. So these are the ways we dissect a narrow QRS tachycardia. So in our patient, narrow QRS tachycardia, RP interval was very close to each other, R and P wave. But there are different morphology and the tachycardia persistent despite the AV block, putting the diagnosis of atrial tachycardia in that case. Thank you. We can go for the next ECG. If Jay is there, I will Jay do that. Please. Jay, you want to add any points, please?
No, perfect, sir. Very nicely done. I think you carry on to the next slide, sir. Next one more case you can describe.
Okay. This is a 45-year-old female. Again, recurrent palpitation on and off for 2 years. Otherwise, clinically normal, echo normal heart. Next slide. Next. Yeah, this is the ECG. You can see the ECG, tachycardia. You can see the QRS complexes are alternating. You can see the changes here. The interesting ECG, a bit complex one. As Jay said, we gently moving towards complex ones. Now the questions. Please go to the next slide. So is it a bidirectional VT, electrical alternance, SVT aberrancy, or bundle branch re-entry? Okay. Bidirectional VT, electrical alternance, SVT aberrancy, bundle branch re-entry. Go to the slide, please. Previous slide. Have a look at the thing. Think of one of the choice. Bidirectional VT, electrical alternance, bundle branch re-entry, or SVT with aberrancy. Let us go for the polls. Can you go for voting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Polling is on.
Yeah, this is an interesting poll. I can see that. House is equally divided almost. Yeah. I think the poll ends. So majority voted for bidirectional VT and equally divided are bundle branch re-entry as second one. Fine, they are possible. But the learning point in this ECG is, go to the ECG, sir. In this is, for a VT or a bundle branch re-entry VT or a bidirectional VT, They can alter the polarity. But here you see one complex is very narrow. Second complex is wide. Always, you see every lead, one complex is narrow, second complex is wide. Whereas the VT, all the complex have to be wide. And it is regularly occurring also. The RR interval is normal, but every alternate bit is wider and the previous one is narrow. So, alternate bit wide QRS, you have to think of a SPT with aberrancy. Electrical alterns, bundle branch re-entry, or bidirectional VT, though they all be in our mind, we should not think that consideration. Next ECG, please. Next slide. Next slide. Same patient after a few minutes. You can see now
Yes, sir,
everything
after a few minutes.
Yeah. Hey, you want to add any comments?
Perfect. No, perfect, sir. It is due to depends on the refractory period of the branches. So the morphology was a right bundle branch block aberrancy, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
When the aberrancy disappears, you have a very narrow QRS tachycardia, bang easy for any of us to diagnose. And only thing during this tachycardia, we can see significant ST depression. So this question we can put to the participants: is it ischemia which is causing this tachycardia? And most of some kind of a rate-related ST depression is seen. Most often it is non-ischemic, and there may be minor troponin rise.
Are we loading? Yes. Go to the next slide. I think JE connection is little tricky. So this is the patient doing EP study. Also, we could induce now the same narrow curve tachycardia which we had second now. All are right bundle branch block. You can see that lead 1 to V6 in V1. You can see now right bundle branch block pattern in this. Why I am showing this is so the patient had a SPT, narrow curve tachycardia with aberrancy. In the clinical picture, it was an aberrancy of alternate beat, one beat narrow, one beat wide. Later, it became perfectly narrow, all the beats. And during the procedure, again, it had a narrow curve tachycardia which widened, aberrancy. So, SPT with aberrancy is one of the differential diagnoses we should consider. Next slide, please. Next slide, yeah. It is during the EP study, you can see the very narrow, these are the R wave and P wave or A wave, what we call during electrophysiology studies. The R petal is so narrow and we could induce it like a typical AV NRT. This patient turned out to be an AV NRT, narrow curve SVT with RVB aberrancy, making it wide at times. Next slide. So, I think Jay has some difficulty in net connectivity. Okay. So this is a 14-year-old girl with syncope. 14-year-old girl with syncope. What is the recommended treatment? See the ECG. You can see the ECG. The questions are: can we do a tilt table test? Being younger, just do a tilt table test, or put the external loop monitor. No need to do anything, just reassure, or a lifestyle measure and beta blocker as an initial treatment. These are the four options. So tilt table, loop monitor, lifestyle measure, beta blocker, no treatment. Go for the poll. Have a look at the ECG. Go for the poll. Hey, I will do this ECG, then you can. I think we can go for the poll. Very few people are voting for. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. The polling gets heated up. Okay.
So
So the
results
majority
are
are through an external loop monitor, or second one is for lifestyle measure beta blocker. Go back to the slide. So the answer is actually number 3, lifestyle measures and beta blocker. The reason is, have a close look on the ECG. If you see the QT interval, the QT interval is long, number 1. And look at the T wave. One T wave is very tall, the next T wave is shallow. Again, tall T wave, shallow. What we call macro T wave alternance. So presence of QT prolongation with macro T wave alternance almost conclude, if you rule out other reversible causes, a long QT syndrome. A long QT syndrome is syncope. We know there is always a risk for patient life and recurrent syncope, rarely death. So, initial thing is lifestyle measure and beta blocker. These are the patient may need advanced therapies that we will not discuss for want of time. But initial therapy is beta blocker, and this is a red herring sign. We have to always remember they are at higher risk in life. So, not to consider other benign measure or simple measures, always be aggressive in treating them. I'll stop here. Jay, you can put your comments and go to your case.
Very, very nicely, sir. It is just that this long QT can be very readily diagnosed by looking at the QT interval. If the QT is more than half the RR, we are all the time dealing with. You don't have to go for the Bezet's formula, and just quickly, with a quick glance, we can make out that kind of a isoelectric ST segment and the T wave, which is falling closer to the next R, indicates the QT is prolonged. So a young child with recurrent syncope, the point was nicely that we are probably dealing with a prolonged QT interval, a long QT syndrome. So, am I audible and visible? Actually, my network is being
so shall we move to Jason?
Yeah.
Just a minute, I'm sharing my slides.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are perfectly audible, sir. Just a minute. I'm getting your slides.
Yeah, it goes off all the time. The network is an issue.
Yeah, it happens, sir. Technical glitch for long-term internet issues. Yeah, sir. Your case 11 is on.
I think we'll skip these. We have discussed these. So please go forward. We'll not waste time in these.
12?
Not the next one as well. No need. Please go forward. No need. Please go forward. We go forward because we have discussed these. So yeah.
Agreed, sir.
Yeah. This one will be okay.
Okay, case 14. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
70-year-old male, history of old anterior wall MI, has severe LV systolic dysfunction, presents with palpitation and sweating to the emergency room. We have a relatively broad complex tachycardia, pretty fast, I must say. You have to look at all the leads carefully. Lead AVL and V2 in particular, V2, V3 are narrower, but the rest are all broad. So what is the diagnosis? Let's go to the poll, Mr. Sachin. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Is that fine to move to poll now?
Yes, please. Yes.
Ananta?
So the participants can poll, yeah.
It's the right poll?
Yeah, that's the right poll.
Perfect.
So I think most of us are perfectly bang on the response. There is a clinical clue attached. As I said earlier, a broad complex tachycardia, 70% of the time is going to be a VT. Old MI, severe LV dysfunction, the chance of it being a VT is very high and probably related to the scar. We'll go back to that. Please go back to the ECG.
Yes, sir. There you
are. So please go full screen on this.
Yeah, I'm doing. Yeah.
So let's see carefully, look at carefully lead AVR. So that extreme axis is very important. There is evidence of VA dissociation in lead V2. Some of the P waves are, you see the ST depression, the P wave falling on the ST segment. And more importantly, there is some slurring of the QRS in lead 3. So such a slurring even during sinus rhythm and during the tachycardia points towards the scar, and an extreme axis with RBBB morphology, old MI, lead 1 and AVL showing negative QRS complex, AVR being positive, the so-called Wernicke's sign, WERICKES, Wernicke's sign, extreme axis or northwest axis during tachycardia is VT. In 92% is the sensitivity and 95% is the specificity for such a sign. Please click once. The correct answer is scar VT here. We'll go to the next slide. A quick one. A 30-year-old male, structurally normal heart, has infrequent palpitations. So by the time he reaches the hospital or reaches the doctor, the palpitations become okay. One such time, one doctor was, I would say, lucky enough to catch the tachycardia. And what may be the diagnosis? We have 4 options here. Look at the ECG carefully. I have given some clues in the previous ECG, and then there are 4 options here, and we'll go for the poll.
Shall we go for a poll?
Yes, please.
Is that perfect? Yes, it is going on.
Perfect. Are we through? Okay, so 2/3 of us have voted for a fascicular VT, which is the right answer. So we'll go back to the ECG and analyze it carefully. I know the time given is very short, but there are some clinical clues. I think we have clicked once to show a narrow complex, which is highlighted in the green shade. So whenever you have a narrow complex in a broad complex tachycardia in between, it's a sin co non for VT. So it's very important. Don't go with a narrower complex during tachycardia. It's pretty narrow, but not too narrow. If you look at lead V1 and V2, it's about 140 millisecond. Please click once. Move. So narrow complex in a broad complex tachycardia is a VT. And look at AVR, the Wernicke's sign is positive. There is something like deep S in 2-3 AVF, and it's a right bundle branch block morphology with a leftward or an extreme axis with a narrow complex during tachycardia. In between, that's a fusion or a capture. Sin co non for a VT, a structurally normal heart in a young adult. Fascicular VT, very common in Southeast Asia. Next. I'll do this one and then we'll move to Dr. TRM, sir. Again, a 19-year-old man. Sorry for the poor quality of the slide. It's called, he presents with syncope and palpitations. It's called a FBI tachycardia. Fast, broad, and irregular. We have the rhythm strip on the bottom panel. Really fast tachycardia. One needs to carefully see this. We'll go to the, I think there is a poll here.
Next.
Yeah, post cardioversion, we get this ECG, and the choices are here. Is it a Wolff-Parkinson White syndrome antidromic AVRT with atrial fibrillation and aberrancy, or a Wolff-Parkinson White syndrome orthodromic AVRT, AF and aberrancy, or it's a broad complex VT, or it's just an AF with aberrancy? So you can go back to the slide once more for people to see both the ECGs before you. So please see carefully. It's a fast, broad, and irregular. The irregularity is seen clearly on the lowermost panel. It is fast, it is irregular, and it's broad. So go to the next slide, please. Post cardioversion, that is the ECG. Again, look carefully at this ECG during sinus rhythm and go for the poll whenever Mr. Sachin asks you to.
Shall we go?
Yes, please.
Poll, please. Ananda, poll. Ananta, poll. Yes. Poll is on.
Okay.
Without showing the results, Ananta, we have concluded the poll. I feel there is some issue in connection, sir. Can
Doesn't
you
matter.
go directly?
Yeah, yes, please, go to
directly on the answer.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
sir.
So you can click here. Once more, it's heartening to see none of us voted for VT. All of us have voted for an AF with aberrancy, but it is down an accessory pathway. It is antidromic or orthodromic is the issue here. It is a antidromic because a very fast AF can go down the pathway and cause a broad complex. Activation of the ventricle leading onto a broad complex. And if it's an AF down the pathway, it will be broad and bizarre, and because of its irregularity, the atrial rate, which is fast, will be conducted down to the ventricle, also very fast, and it will also be irregular. So it's a antidromic AVRT with an atrial fibrillation and aberrancy. And clearly look at the delta wave in lead 1, AVL, V4 to V6. That's pretty obvious there that we are dealing with an accessory pathway, and negative delta in 2-3 AVF, indicating that we are probably looking at a left-sided, possibly something like a posteroceptal accessory pathway. Next, please. So we'll hand it over to Dr. TRM sir next.
Yeah. Nice ECG, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Very important. This is one of the medical emergencies, as you rightly point out.
Yes,
they
sir.
have to be dealt immediately. And okay.
Please go back.
This is what
yeah. This is the ECG. We saw just now. We saw the young girl. Go to the next. Related to that, next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Yeah. This is the ECG is showing a rhythm strip. You can see sudden onset of tachycardia. We have clearly mentioned even R-on-T on the ectopic beat, which is precipitating this tachycardia. So no doubt at all. We know just now we discussed nicely about long QT. Jay clearly explained the myriads of long QT syndrome. Go to the next slide. So the question is, what should not be done? Can we IV magnesium? Can we do overdrive pacing? Can we do a stellate ganglion block, particularly left side, or amiodarone? One of the things it is better to be avoided in this condition. Go back to the ECG. The previous slide. So which should to be avoided? Let us go for the poll. So we can vote now. Which one to be avoided?
Ananda, poll, please. Yes, it is happening. 6 people have voted.
Yeah.
The results are in front of.
Amiodarone. Go to the slide.
Going, sir.
You will avoid amiodarone whenever we see a long QT, and anytime use the drug cautiously. So this is always to be remembered. In acquired one, many times we try IV magnesium, overdrive pacing, and in congenital, many times we look for stellate ganglion surgeries. So Jay, would you like to add any more points?
Perfect. Again, very nicely brought out. R-on-T triggering a VT because of the depolarization artifact falling on the end of the repolarization. The R wave falling on the T wave, well-known cause for precipitating a VT. And as you rightly pointed out, when the baseline QT is prolonged, using amiodarone will only bring about more of its pro-arrhythmic effects. So we don't want that ever. And the others are all accepted forms of treatment, particularly in acquired long QT syndrome.
Do you want to take over?
Sure, sir. Sure. So we'll go to one of my slides next.
So, Jay sir, or shall I move to your slides?
Yes.
Yeah. Bipolar. This is what you would like to take. Yeah.
Probably. One more slide, please click. Yeah.
Is this okay
So,
or
yeah,
next?
that's right. That's right. So there may not be a poll here. It is just that I'll probably explain. 65-year-old lady had a permanent pacemaker done, dual chamber rate responsive, 1 month ago, and 1 month later she presents to the casualty with giddiness. The residents starts running, gets the ECG, and he says, "I don't see any pacemaker artifact here," and patient is complaining of giddiness. So this scenario is not uncommon, but then we need to carefully see lead V4, V5, V6, which shows pacing artifact followed by QRS, very tiny pacing artifact. Please click once. And I have just shown on the inset a small picture of how the electrode which is in contact with the right ventricular myocardium, both the positive and negative electrodes are very closely placed, closely spaced. So the voltage of the pathway of depolarization wavefront is in a very narrow zone close to the endocardium where the tip of the lead is in contact. So you may not have very big pacing spikes. An arrow mark shows the pacing spike followed by QRS. The patient is pacing all right. We have to evaluate, interrogate the pacemaker and see that though the pacing artifact is not very prominently seen, still patient is pacing all the time. We can interrogate and see the device should be working all right. Click once, please. Let's see if we have the next ECG. So against this, where again you see big pacing artifacts, look carefully all the leads. There are two pacing artifacts. First pacing artifact followed by P wave, next pacing artifact followed by QRS. So such a big pacing artifact indicates patient is on a unipolar mode. Please click once. Maybe we have a figure here to show how unipolar works. So again in the inset you see the pulse generator is shown on top, a direction of current flow from negative to positive. The positive pole is in contact with the myocardium. So the current, the wavefront of depolarization goes from the pulse generator to the pacing lead in contact with the RV myocardium. Longer distance traveled, greater voltage artifact. So you'll in unipolar pacing you'll get big pacing artifacts. In bipolar, as I showed in the previous example, they'll be very minuscule. Sometimes we may not be able to see the pacing artifact. So if that is the case, we may have to get the pacemaking programmer to evaluate and see the integrity of the pacemaker. Next, please. So we may not have poles now. We'll have to very carefully see the ECGs. TRM sir is there or he's moved?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there.
Sir, so you may have to add. Only thing is, it's going to be straight away dual chamber pacing analysis, rhythm strip, and down there is on the inset box there are some parameters of the pacemaker. The lower rate set at 60 beats per minute, the maximum track rate set at 120 beats per minute, AV delay of 200 millisecond, and post ventricular atrial refractory period of 250 millisecond. So for those of us who are beginning to understand pacemaker ECGs, we have to look very carefully that pacemaker does two important functions. It senses the inherent or the underlying heart rhythm. If the patient's own heart rhythm is there, it does not pace. When the pacemaker senses no heart rhythm from the of the patient's own, then it starts working. So that's the important thing. Whenever the patient's heart rate drops below 60 beats per minute, the pacemaker starts working. And when the patient starts exercising or walks or runs or shouts or is angry, the heart rate increases above 120. The pacemaker will make sure that the heart rate does not go beyond 120. That's called the maximum tracking rate. So if we look at this ECG carefully, as I said, the pacemaker does two important functions, sensing and pacing. We'll run through the complexes. First one is a P wave followed by a pacing spike and then QRS, which is broad. Whenever the paced QRS is there, it's going to be broad because the depolarization vector does not travel through the His-Purkinje network. It goes and activates the myocardium directly. Hence, the QRS is going to be broad. And as we run through to the right side of the panel, we'll see that the sixth pacing artifact, that is the has two pacing artifacts. One artifact followed by no complex. So that first one has to be a pacing artifact of the right atrium, and we should ideally get a P wave there. It is not there. Then pacing artifact followed by QRS. So it is able to depolarize the ventricle. For some reason, 6th and 7th complexes, the pacing artifact in the atrium is not followed by a P wave, but pacing artifact is followed by QRS. And the last complex shows a normally sensed P wave, but and a paced QRS. So if we have to analyze this carefully, please click once. So two of the so down there we see the all the pacemaker ECG. Please click once more to explain. There is a loss of atrial capture. So sensing is okay. It senses the atrial atria, but when it has to pace the atria, it does not capture the atria. So there's a loss of atrial capture. That's very important. And we are able to see normal ventricular capture. We do not have an idea of the ventricular sensing because there is no QRS, inherent QRS. So click again, please. So normal atrial sensing, as I said. So sensing is okay, but does not capture the atrium for some reason, loss of atrial capture. Next, please. Normal ventricular capture. Next. We don't have an idea about the ventricular sensing because all the ventricular beats are captured beats by pacing artifact. Sir, would you like to add anything here?
No, perfect. So we not only look at pacing spike, we have to look at the depolarization wave produced in the respective chambers. Here, Jay showed that the absence of P wave is important to notice. Nicely depicted, Jay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Would you like to carry on, sir, or should I go on?
Whichever way.
Oh, so please do the next one, sir.
Yeah,
no, sir can do the next one.
Okay, here we are again written very clearly dual chamber ECG analysis.
Please show Dr. Muralidharan.
Fine. Bring in, not a problem. Show that, yeah. Maybe again, I'm going to touch as a patient as a whole, not as a cardiac thing. It's a known case of, diabetic, hypertensive, elderly male. Same with recent cellulitis leading to septic shock and chest cardiomyopathy. And at that time, we had atrial fibrillation with a fast atrial response. So, sepsis, diabetic, hypertensive, needed correction of atrial fibrillation with amiodarone. Come back readmitted with ventricular tachycardia and recurrent cardiac arrest. Readmitted with polymorphic VT and recurrent cardiac arrest. Go to the next slide. So this is the ECG after he was resuscitated. So previous admission was cellulitis, septic shock, AFib, atrial fibrillation, treated with amiodarone. Now come with VT, reverted. This is the ECG. This is the watch on it. Go to the question.
ஏர்டெல் டேக்கிகார்ட் நேத்திக்கு அவங்க தான் அனுப்பிச்சிருந்தார். நேத்திக்கு இருக்கிறது ஏர்டெல் டேக்கிகார்ட் தான். 2:1 போயிட்டு இருந்தது. அதே பாருங்க. நான் அது டவுன்லோட் ஆகுது. Sure.
Okay. Do we have any question? Go to the next slide. Next. Okay, go back. Yeah, so the point I would like to show here is you are seeing a person with a very long QT. Here is the drug-induced QT with associated aortic abnormality. The deep PV inversion usually we see immediately after a cardiac arrest. Next slide. So the same patient, as you are monitoring the ICU, you can see the long QT, a classical RRT as begun the previous thing, leading to a very long polymorphic VT, pulseless VT. So the lesson to learn here is, though we treat patients with antiarrhythmics, they are all pro-arrhythmics. They can produce like this. We saw a congenital long QT. There is an acquired long QT syndrome, making the patient to go for recurrent cardiac arrest. Next slide. I'll just do this and give it to you, Jay. Okay.
Sure.
Is a 56-year-old lady. Point is important. Like Jay showed nicely, dual chamber pacemaker for 6-liner syndrome. So AV node is fine. The SCA node is not healthy. Tachybrady syndrome, 6-liner syndrome, underwent a dual chamber pacemaker. With underlying LV dysfunction, angiogram showed no abnormality. Patient on anti-failure measures in view of LV dysfunction. Coming is one episode of transient giddiness. That's all. So, patient on pacemaker, LV dysfunction, on drugs for failure, one episode of transient giddiness. Go to the EC. So this is the ECG visa. This is again we have to take a screenshot only. This is the ECG visa. Lead 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. Go to the question. Next slide. So what shall we do? Shall we leave her alone? Should we do for urgent pacemaker interrogation, or rule out acute coronary syndrome, or immediate admission? Go back to the slide and go for the poll. So shall I send her back, or admission, or do the pacemaker interrogation, or acute coronary syndrome? This is the ECG. Let us go for the poll now. Okay. The majority suggests pacemaker interrogation. Equal number says rightly the immediate admission also. The right answer is immediate admission. Go to the ECG, please. Now go to the slide. Of course, you can do interrogation. Definitely, we'll be doing. But the point of importance is the history. 6 sinus syndrome. That means the AV node is fine. But now you are seeing a wide rhythm, pitching pacemaker rhythm, but no P wave at all. You don't see the P wave, you don't see the atrial pacing. Though the pacemaker was originally placed to treat the abnormal atrial depolarization, SA node abnormality. But no evidence of atrial pacing, wide QRS, very wide QRS. With the background history of AC inhibitor and the diuretic, you have to look for whether they are potassium sparing diuretic. This case was, next slide, indeed had a hyperkalemia. The potassium was 7.5. He was treated with the standard potassium, hyperkalemic treatment. We withheld the spironolactone. The potassium came down to 4 milliequivalent per liter. You can see what happens after that. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, this is after treating her. See, within a day, you can see he is going for a atrial pacing rhythm. Like Jay was discussing nicely. Here, the atrial pacemaker producing P wave, nicely seen P wave. Ventricle is a conductor QRS. So, predominantly, those are dual chamber pacemaker, atrium needs pacing, ventricle is being sent properly. So, always remember these electrolyte abnormalities in the elderly people where the proper evaluation will cure them. And hyperkalemia can be deadly at times. Thank you for your listening. Jay, please, I would like to listen your comments on this.
Oh, fantastic, sir. Very nice case. Very nicely brought out that clinical judgment is important. Hyperkalemia will lead to increase in pacing thresholds and can lead to atrial standstill. That's what has happened. So there was no atrial capture. Once you corrected the potassium, you could nicely look at the pacemaker function. Correct judgment by half the delegates, half the audience, that we have to admit these patients immediately. And the one ECG at presentation also showed tall T waves, tall tented T waves, suggestive of hyperkalemia, and I think very nicely brought up and and managed perfectly. Sir, would you like to continue?
Would you like to do one case? Then I'll come back. Maybe only one more case.
Okay. Please show mine, Mr. Sachin, the next one. Again, it's a dual chamber pacing. Oh, no, please go back. Yeah. So dual chamber pacemaker, look carefully. I will run through the slide. On the bottom panel, there is an inset screen which shows a basal, lower rate of 60 beats per minute, maximum track rate, again 120 beats per minute. In elderly, we don't want them to have a rate higher than 120. An AV delay of 200 millisecond, and we have a PVARC, that is post-ventricular atrial refractory period of 250 milliseconds. So if you look at, there is one pacing spike followed by an inverted P wave in the first panel, then a normal looking QRS. Second also same way. Third also paced P wave, and normal QRS. And fourth shows pacing artifact followed by wave, pacing artifact followed by a QRS, which is wide. Then next three complexes are same. So we'll now click once, please. Go to the next slide. So what do we see? We see a normal atrial capture, and there is some kind of a possible pseudo fusion of atrial output on the fourth P wave, because fourth P wave is upright. The first three P waves are negative. So pacing artifact followed by negative P wave in the first three complexes, pacing artifact followed by a fourth P wave which is upright. So possible pseudo fusion on the fourth atrial output. We do not have an information about atrial sensing because all the time the atria is being captured by the pacemaker. Next, please. And there is loss of ventricular capture. See, after the pacing artifact, the QRS does not come up immediately. There is some delay. Next, please click once more. The ventricular sensing is normal, that we see because first 3 beats and the last 3 beats have a normal looking QRS. So ventricular sensing is normal, but the fourth complex which was paced, there was loss of ventricular sensing. It didn't sense the underlying QRS and it just paced. And after the pacing, there was a delay before the ventricle could capture. So next, please. So that's how we have to see each and every complex when we look at the pacemaker ECG. So this one again, a dual chamber pacemaker. Again, there are information given down there. Basic lower rate at 60 beats per minute, maximum track rate 120 beats per minute. The AV delay, that is the PR interval, is something like 200 millisecond. Post ventricular atrial refractory period of 250 millisecond. So no polling here. I'm just going to explain. First complex is not clearly seen. The second complex shows a pacing spike followed by P wave, pacing spike followed by QRS. So same thing goes on all the beats. But in the fourth complex, the P wave comes first, followed by pacing spike, and then there is no P wave, pacing spike followed by QRS. So that's the important thing to be seen very carefully, that the fourth complex, the P wave occurs before. So that means the atrial lead has not sensed the underlying atrial event. So there is a atrial undersensing here clearly. Next, please. Please click on. Please click again. So normal atrial capture with 1 beat showing functional loss of atrial capture, there is probably undersensing. Whenever the pacing artifact falls all over the complex, it is undersensing. That means it is not sensing the underlying intrinsic P wave or intrinsic QRS. But however, the ventricular capture is normal and ventricular sensing is not known because we do not have a normal sinus rhythm QRS. So that's how the report has to say. Normal atrial capture with 1 beat showing functional loss of atrial capture. Atrial undersensing is there. The ventricular capture is normal, but we do not have an idea about ventricular sensing. Next. So do we continue or sir is there? So Dr. P.R.M. sir can present if he is there.
I think I can show my last case and the question quiz, but
yes.
The other case, the time permits, we can discuss. Maybe.
Sure. There will be time, sir. Please go ahead.
This is an interesting patient. In fact, I thought I should share with Jay also particularly. This lady, 35-year-old lady, the ECG is easily more than 12, 13 years old. I think 2004, yeah. Recurrent syncope 2 years. No ischia palpitation, recurrent syncope, and we have already mastered a lot of discussion happened in the patch phase, everything. So you can see the 12-lead ECG, sorry for the poor quality. You can see the 12-lead ECG, you can see the delta wave. You can see the delta wave, short PR interval, very evident in B1, and a tall positive QRS in B1 suggests a left side of axis. But that's true also. So we are seeing this patient, recurrent syncope, delta wave, pre-excitation, STCG. Next slide. The questions are, what could be the possibility of syncope? Can it be a orthodromic SPT, that is narrow cross tachycardia we see regularly, or a pre-existing atrial fibrillation as shown by Dr. Jaishankar sometime back, a broad irregular fast tachycardia, or an antitropic SVT where every input goes through the pathway and coming back through the AV node, or we need more data? This is the question. Okay. So what could be the cause of syncope in this lady? Go back to the ECG and then we go for the poll. So we are seeing a patient with a WPW pattern with syncope. Can it be what some sort of arrhythmia due to that, or we need more data? Go for the poll. Let us vote now. I will also be with you vote one. Okay. Thanks for the response. People are thinking, some people want more data. Majority wanted more data. Yeah, you are right. You need more data. And some are expecting tachycardia also possible. Go to the slide, sir. Finish the poll and go to the slide. So the right answer will be we need more data, because many of the time the syncope in patient with the pathway, they do have palpitation. Without go back to the slide. Go back to the slide. Previous. Previous. Yeah. Previous. Go to the previous slide. Previous slide. So, though there is a WPW pattern, the patient did not give any history of tachycardia at all, no palpitation. Commonly, people with SVT, rarely they develop syncope. Even there will be an episodes of palpitation they will feel clinically. Need not be there at times. But here, go to the next slide now. Go to the slide 53. 53. Yeah, this is the thing. Please show the slide, please. Yeah, please show the slide. Full view. Go to the previous slide. Both are showing the thing, the precordial leads. Previous slide. Yeah. See, this is the ECG taken when she had syncope once at a different place. He was from Andaman. You can see complete heart block. You can see frequent P waves. QRS is now narrow. QRS is narrow, not conducted. We all were talking about an accessory pathway which can conduct impulses. This was one curious case wherein our AV node is having a complete heart block by birth. Congenital absence of AV node or AV node conduction and the pathway. You are all along living conduction only through the pathway. The only communication between atria and ventricle inner was a left lateral pathway. And whenever the pathway could not conduct properly for some reason, she developed complete heart block and syncope. So we always think pathway will cause tachycardia and symptoms. Here, this lady had bradycardia causing symptoms because you are living almost on the pathway. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. All we did was we ablated the pathway. In the same sitting, we have put a pacemaker. This is nearly 15 years. This is 2004 we did. Nearly 15 years. He is doing very well. But I thought it was an interesting clinical case also. And the point to be conveyed is need not be tachycardia is the only symptom to cause in this type of patient. The other, rarely this type of phenomena can cause bradycardia and syncope. Thank you. Jay, your comments. Jay would like to add any points? I think Jay Shankar connectivity is a problem. Till he connects, maybe I'll go to the next slide. If there's a delay in Jay Shankar's connectivity, go my side. Next slide. Till Jay comes, I will hold the fort. Yeah. Okay. So this is the ECG done in this patient. After pacemaker, you can see the normal occurring P wave and phase rhythm. Next slide. Close the polling. Next slide, please.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, this is another clinically interesting case, right? Just hold, don't press the next button. What you are seeing is a patient came with a repeated episode of palpitation, middle-aged lady, repeated episode of palpitation. You can see varying QRS complex. Press next. Yeah. Then little enlarged view, you can see frequent VPCs are varying morphology was happening. This is not for a poll. Just I thought I'll show this case. Frequent VPCs are varying morphology. Some are narrow, some are wide. The axis is varying in the lower rectum strip. Next slide. So this patient had a ECG of pleomorphic VT, short history. Her angiogram was normal. Unfortunately, she was having heparin-induced thrombocytopenia also, which was managed. Echo showed biventricular dysfunction. A middle-aged lady coming with a short history like that. Next slide. This type of pleomorphic manifestation, always we have to think of insensitive causes. This patient underwent an MRI and PET also, and they suggested scarring and focal myocarditis-like pattern in the septum involving RV3 wall and all. And we did a endometrial biopsy. Next slide. The last slide. Jay.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Endometrial biopsy confirmed the presence of sarcoidosis. So why we are presenting it is one of the common things we come across in our country. Electrophysiologists like me or Jay Shankar or every team having their own number of cases who present with the atypical presentation, often treated as a coronary problem or a cardiomyopathy and can be a treatable condition called sarcoidosis. I'll stop here just for curiosity. I want to share this. This can manifest as conduction disturbance or ventricular tachycardia. Thank you. Jay, your comments and please take over.
So, no, it's very nice case, sir. Again, sarcoid is an important clinical entity. You correctly highlighted. If a patient presents with both conduction disturbance and also tachycardia, particularly ventricular tachycardia, of course, all kinds of tachycardia can occur. We have to start thinking of a cardiac sarcoid. Quite common infiltrative diseases of the heart. Tuberculosis and sarcoid both have to be kept in mind in our country. So I have few slides, some of the pacemaker. I think we have some 10 minutes more time. I'll just show 2 or 3 more slides and then wind up. Can you make it big, please, Sachinji? Yeah. So again, a dual chamber pacing. We have all the data down there. Lower heart rate 60 beats per minute, maximum track rate 120, P warp of 250, AV delay of 200. So let's see carefully. First complex, pacing spike followed by P wave, pacing spike followed by a broad QRS. Second one, same way, pacing spike followed by P and QRS. Third one, there is a sinus P wave. So sensing, so first two were paced atrial beats, third was a sensed atrial beat. Then a narrow looking QRS followed by pacing spike. So I've told already, if the pacing spike falls all over the complex, that means there is undersensing going on. Fourth complex shows a normal pacing spike followed by P wave, normal QRS. So fifth also same way. Sixth complex, again the same thing happens. P wave is sinus. QRS is also a sinus QRS, inherent QRS, intrinsic QRS rather, and followed by a pacing spike. So the pacing spike in the ventricular lead is not able to sense the underlying QRS with reasonable accuracy. It is falling all over the QRS. There is undersensing on the ventricular lead. That's the important thing. Normal atrial pacing, normal atrial sensing, normal ventricular capture, but there is undersensing of the intrinsic QRS. That's what will be the report. Please click once and then we'll see carefully what is the, yeah. Please click again, so you will get the answers here. Normal atrial capture, normal atrial sensing, normal ventricular capture with 2 beats of functional loss of capture, because after the pacing spike, there is no capture of the ventricle because the ventricle is already depolarized by the intrinsic QRS. That's the important thing. Ventricular undersensing. Whenever the pacing spike falls all over the complex, whether on the P wave or the QRS, that means it is not able to sense what's going on underneath, what is the intrinsic rhythm. So ventricular undersensing brought up here. It may be a problem of the lead. So particularly if it's patient who's dependent, then we are worried. If patient is not dependent like this, patient has an intrinsic QRS, we are less worried. We interrogate the pacemaker and take appropriate corrective measures. Do you want to add anything here, sir?
No. Thanks, sir. Very interesting point.
Okay, please go to the next slide, Sachin. It may be, yeah. So I have marked out those pacing spikes. Please go back. Highlighted the pacing spike falling on the at the end of the QRS, indicating that it is not able to sense the underlying QRS. That's ventricular undersensing. And after the pacing spike has been delivered, it doesn't capture the myocardium because the myocardium is refractory in view of it being depolarized by the native QRS. Please go to the next slide, Mr. Sachin. If I'm not wrong, it may be one of the last slides. A very interesting slide again. Dual chamber pacemaker for sure. Written it on top. Again, the parameters are down there. Lower rate of 60 beats per minute, upper track rate or maximum track rate of 120 beats per minute, post ventricular atrial refractory period of 250 milliseconds, which is normal. So I will run through the thing carefully. First 4 complexes, we see a P wave, which is a native or intrinsic P wave, followed by a spike, pacing spike, followed by QRS. So first 4 beats, same thing occurs. But the 5th beat, there is an interesting P wave, but no QRS. 6th beat has a P wave followed by pacing spike and QRS. 7th beat, P wave, no QRS. 8th beat, P wave followed by pacing spike and QRS, and so on and so forth. Please click once again and we'll get the response, how we should interpret this. So some of the P waves are conducted down the node, pacing spike and QRS. Next. Please click once more. So there is a 2:1 block because you see the rate, always the rate has to be seen. You see the ventricular rate, it's above 120. So already the ventricular rate is going close to 120. The moment it is going above 120, the pacemaker will make sure that there is no 1:1 atrial conduction. There will be 2:1 now. So in elderly people, as I said earlier on, we set the maximum track rate, which may be 120 or 130, because faster heart rates are detrimental to them. So whenever the ventricular rate, the atrial rate is say 120 or above, the AV node goes into switch off mode, so-called maximum track rate. It's called the normal upper rate behavior. It will so the every alternate P wave will be conducted down. So that's the inference out there. It's a very important phenomenon. It doesn't indicate loss of pacemaker function. We have to carefully analyze each and every complex to bring this out. Sir, would you like to add anything, or should I move forward?
Move forward. You can move forward. Thank you. The PMT is always thought in this condition, but you rightly pointed out it is upright behavior rather than a pacemaker mediated tachycardia. Jay, are you there? I think till Jay comes, we will discussing. See, you can see that the P wave, the 2:1 conduction. So, a pacemaker mediated tachycardia may resemble closely, but then the P wave will be a retrograde one of a different morphology. Here, it is probably an spontaneous P wave occurring not due to retrograde activation of the conductor impulses. That is the important point. And after termination, the 2:1 response also. Upright behavior response. Next slide. Yeah, till Jay comes, I'm going to discuss with you. He will continue the analysis from this. Again, dual chamber ECG of Dr. Jaishankar. What you are seeing is a basal rate of 60 per minute, maximum track rate 120, an AV delay of 200 milliseconds, and phase everything is of 150 milliseconds, and PVARP is 250 milliseconds. Okay. And when I come and see the ECG, the first complex, there is an atrial pacing spike, followed by a P wave, and followed by a ventricular spike, followed by ventricular capture. The second beat follows the same route. And then the third beat, I am seeing something interesting. A QRS coming without a preceding P wave. Without a preceding P wave, there is a QRS, which is followed by, I don't see any atrial spike. I don't see an atrial spike, but there's a regularly occurring ventricular capture continuously. I think Jay will come in, but I will hold the secret of this interesting arrhythmia, something related to what we talked few minutes ago. You can see so as atrial pacing, ventricular pacing, atrial pacing, ventricular pacing. then only ventricular ectopic beat, which initiates a tachycardia-like picture, but all are ventricular paced beat at a higher rate. All are ventricular paced beat at a higher rate, and if we look at the rate, it is touching the maximum track rate, 120. So it is at the upper rate of the pacemaker. Pacemaker dual chamber has a lower rate, below which it cannot go, and upper rate above which it cannot move. So we are seeing a rhythm of a pacing rhythm after a ventricular ectopy going for a paced rhythm at the upper tracking rate or upper rate interval. Jay, can you take over from there?
Yeah, perfect, sir. It's a pacemaker-mediated tachycardia, classically brought out by a PVC, and patients can be very symptomatic, and we have to interrogate. And as sir rightly pointed out, we have to look for it carefully. It is because of V to A conduction, and if you want to quickly abort it, all you have to do is put a pacemaker magnet on top of the pacemaker, and it will stop. Please go to the next one. I think this must be the next one. Click once more, please. So all this fast. No, please go back. Normal atrial capture. No, click once, please. Yeah, normal atrial capture and sensing. Normal ventricular capture. We do not know about ventricular sensing function because underlying QRS is all paced. Initiation of pacemaker mediated tachycardia classically follows a PVC. So a PVC which triggers the tachycardia, and then it's called pacemaker mediated tachycardia because of a V to A conduction. And this P VARC, which is written down there, 250 millisecond. If you just prolong this, make the atria refractory after ventricle is depolarized for 250 millisecond at the moment it is set. You make it 350 millisecond, there won't be a V to A conduction. The atria will be refractory to accept any impulses from the ventricle and get activated, so we can abolish the tachycardia. As we are waiting to interrogate and increase the P VARC, we can keep a magnet on top of the pacemaker and abolish the tachycardia. I think I'll probably stop here and hand over to TRM sir for any comments on this, sir.
No, nice. In fact, you showed the difference. In your previous slide, previous case, you showed 2:1 upper behavior, and where the P wave morphology different, and here nicely retrograde P wave and the typical of a pacemaker mediated tachycardia. I think we had a very good time. I should thank you for teaching me a lot of points today, Jay.
No. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and I learned a lot of very interesting cases you did show. And I must thank you for bringing up a lot of points, so many important points relevant to clinical practice. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you.
We should wait for some questions if there are anything if you want. Can we wait for a few minutes?
Yeah, if there are questions on the chat box, we can take the questions, sir.
Yeah, we can take for 5
Sachin, would you like to? Yeah. Sachin, are you there? I think there are quite a questions.
Dr. Ajit Kamal wants a copy of the event. Definitely, I think they can share if they want.
Yeah, I think Subramaniam or Sachin can organize for this. Hello.
Yeah, sir. I'm just waiting for if there is some moderation. If there is any question, I'm seeing that. Just a minute. I think people have. Just
the important thing I would like to
point let me just see if at all there is any question.
So that's the most important thing. Thanks to you, sir, because we could stick to the time and show some interesting ECGs, and we have time for questions if any.
Sir, audience is thanking. Thank you messages are coming about all the learning. Questions. But there is no question that is popping up right now. So over to Subho for vote of thanks. It was really wonderful to have both of you, sir. I'm just waiting. Yeah, Subho.
Before you pass it on to Subramani, I must thank wholeheartedly Dr. TRM sir, my senior and EP colleague. He always makes the teaching part very interesting, and he has his own fine way of putting points across. So I learned quite a lot from him. I must thank Sun Pharma, in particular Sachin, Subramaniam, Yasin, and Setupati for making sure that this program goes on